Saturday, September 5th, 2021. Today on the Daily Review, we discuss Crimson Tide, another dad-type movie from a Labor Day weekend in 1995. It's Tony Scott's Crimson Tide. I already said that. Starring Gene Hackman, Denzel Washington, and a bunch of side players like Viggo Mortensen, James Gandolfini, Steve Zahn, and even little Ryan Phillippe gets a few shots in the background. Join me, won't you? Joe LaRocca on the greatest show on the internet with under 1,000 subs. Hey guys, it's a Don Simpson, Jerry Bruckheimer production, which is great. Something's wrong with my headphones. Let me fiddle with it. Oh, there we go. Okay, again, I don't know why I've just kind of been addicted to these 90s movies, that some of which I have not seen or have not seen in a while. This I have not seen ever. And I oft got it confused with Hunt for the Red October, because they had very similar posters. And I assumed it was kind of a boring movie, like an action movie with no action in it. That's what I remember thinking when I was a kid. And I am pretty much right, except the acting is really good and the script is really good for the first half, and then some kind of implausible decisions get made. People act kind of irrationally and a bit out of character, I feel, or which usually means they didn't establish the character well enough. So what it is that the U.S. and Russia are at the brink of war, sort of. But Russia has a civil war with Chechnya. And essentially, because of that civil war, the rebels have nuclear codes and the ability to launch, and they're going to launch. So we are in and it's basically like a standoff sort of situation, like Cuban Missile Crisis. Like, well, if they fire, then we fire. If we fire, they fire. But we got to fire them to blow out so they can't fire them. And, that the whole kind of, who starts this, potentially destruction of the planet that is kind of the basis of so many Cold War movies. So it's like a modern, what happened, it's a Cuban Missile Crisis, but 30 years later, and really the core of the story is Denzel is executive officer who is basically second in command to the captain, who is Gene Hackman, and Gene Hackman is like a war-weathered old naval coot, who's like, believes in, he's bullheaded and believes in like getting your hands dirty and the ultimate responsibility of the nuclear sub-captain being, so incredibly important. And Denzel, as his mom calls him, he's he's a Harvard grad, and then he's all like theory and academics, but it has no actual combat experience. So it's their two ideologies butting head. One's kind of a warmonger and the other is a peacemonger, which doesn't make any sense. It's very bolsters the spirits of the armed services is probably the positive way to say it, So, like that's kind of the angle it's coming in, which is a lot with all these Jerry Bruckheimer, Don Simpson, Tony Scott. They have a lot of admiration for the armed services, which I've, hey, that's fine. I agree, I guess, actually. But, they show them like kind of like superheroes, low angles and stuff. Like the whole beginning is in the rain. And I was like, wait a second, why? This doesn't have to be in the rain. They're just doing it because it makes everybody look awesome. And that's kind of the point of this. Like, oh, yeah, these are the heroes. We're heroing up. The first plot point really comes in. And probably my favorite scene is the first officers' dinner, the first night. And it's kind of becomes this like battle of wits between. And you go, uh-oh, Gene Hackman is going to take control, like, over any means, and it's going to be, like, it's going to get to the nuclear level. So it's very nicely done, and it, like, kind of shows how they butt heads on their philosophies, on the rules of engagement in war and stuff like that. If this sounds boring, it is a little bit boring. Some cool action stuff does start happening, where there's a fire in the galley, and they decide to have a drill, and then all this, it's like, oh God, crazy boat action like Das Boot, and we stay in the ship the whole time. We stay, or the boat, I think we should call it. So it does have a little bit of that claustrophobic feel, although the cinematography is incredibly well done, that it doesn't feel, the visuals are not boring, surprisingly, even though we're essentially in one location. A lot of Dutch angles and stuff like that. We're here to protect democracy, not to practice it. That's a Gene Hackman line that I thought was pretty awesome. So then it kind of starts getting like Gene Hackman, like they should have made him like actually crazy or something. But then that kind of ruins it because it makes it silly. It makes the U.S. kind of the enemy as well. But basically they get an EAM, an emergency something message, action message or whatever, that basically that they should preemptively launch because like the Russians are going to be capable of launching their nukes in 45 minutes, and that starts this countdown. But then they get a second EAM message that is like cut off, that they don't, that for technical reasons they don't get the ability to read, so they're like, well, maybe that was stop it, and he's like, and the captain's like, well, no, we should just keep going. We should just go and destroy the world, even though we're not 100% sure what that message was, which is just like, it's such a leap from what he seemed fairly rational, but like gung-ho and kind of, like I was saying, like get your hands dirty kind of character, but not like crazy. And that's crazy. That's like illogical. He has his own logic in the beginning, but this is like, and then it becomes this weird, boring rush from Calogero from A Bronx Tale. It's like trying to fix a radio, and his acting is bad, and it's just bad. And the scene between, oh God, there's this scene where he's like, Denzel has to talk to him. I think it's the worst scene Denzel's ever had to do. And he's fine in it because he's awesome in everything, but he has to be like, Star Trek? He's like, you're like my Scotty, and I'm asking you to give me more power. And he's like, I get it. I'm Calogero. I think I'm in jail now. Isn't that kid in jail? Anyway. Yeah, it really, really kind of falls off the map. Because I was like, wow, Tony Scott's doing a really good job of kind of not having it be as, kind of over the top and spastic, like a lot of his movies are. Like, really. But it has the same stupid conceit in the third act of something that you just have to put out of your mind, because Denzel makes so many good points. He's like, listen, we're not the only sub out here. This is why we have redundancy. We didn't get the message. That other sub, the other U.S. sub, will take care of it. Like, let's not destroy the world. Like, he doesn't seem to have a reason to do that. He does have a rat terrier dog that is kind of cute that I don't really know the meaning of. I thought it was going to have some sort of meaning, and it doesn't really. It's just to like add a little bit of fun to this movie. Like, somebody read the script and was like, Jesus, this is a stale one. Fucking put a dog in there or something. I don't even think there's like a woman in the movie for like 8 seconds in the beginning. This is totally a dad Labor Day weekend type movie, Anyway, it ends up, leads to mutiny kind of, and then the mutiny kind of ping pongs back and forth, and it really gets muddled and seemingly unrealistic. I don't know. Compare this, when you make a sub movie, you always are competing with Das Boot, which is like one of the best war movies ever made. Talk about super accurate war movies, even though it's not a real story, right? That's not a real story, Das Boot, is it? Is that a real story? If that's a real story, that is a real story, isn't it? God, what a devastating story. Anyway, Das Boot's really great. And hey, remember last time I did a bunch of 90s movies, I noticed that color gradient filter wherever the sky is, and it's like this filter that makes the sky look purple, and it's basically a piece of glass that you put in front of the lens that like starts at like a more opaque color and then gradients out by the middle. And they used to do it to make like the sky, if the sky was gray and you kind of wanted it to look more magical, you usually did it near the end of your movie. And all these 90s movies have it, and it's like, now we can do that by isolating the sky, but it would go all the way across, so even the like purpleness would go onto like a building, like be clear. And it's fine. It's actually like kind of a cool effect, and I bet people kind of I bet we'll start seeing it again in the, like, when we're getting into the 90s revival stuff. We'll start seeing the people using those gradient, like physical gradient filters to achieve that more 90s look. I really think that they should have played up the racial tones in this movie, like the racial conflicts. It's not really till the end where we start getting some of the, like, oh, maybe the captain's a bit racist. And that's really something that probably should have been throughout the whole movie. Yeah. So I don't know. It's if you really like sub movies, I think it's definitely one of the decent ones. You know, it's not so unrealistic. They don't get like they're not like dodging torpedoes the whole time and doing like, it's not tons of that stuff. And if I remember correctly, movies like U-571 are just like non-stop torpedoes being fired back and forth and stuff like that. Although that was a pretty good movie. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of music. Hey, what's up, Hobbit? You guys can talk again. I'll be here to talk. I think the channel's kind of dying. We've kind of really leveled out on views. Maybe it's because I'm doing movies that nobody cares about. But whatever, I did Shang-Chi, but I shit all over it, so. Can I just say one more thing about Shang-Chi? The action is, in some parts of it, especially the first half, is really good. And the special effects are cool, and all this stuff, whenever characters are using the 10 rings, it's cool. There's just not enough of that stuff. And I do think the characters are likable. The other one thing is that the bad guy isn't scary. The Mandarin isn't scary. And even Awkwafina has a line where she's like, that was the scariest dude I've ever met. And it's like literally, I think it's put in there so that we go, oh, that guy's supposed to be scary because he kind of is adorable. Like, he doesn't come off as scary. He's just got this cute nose. The Mandarin, too cute. Both the Mandarin and the fake Mandarin are adorable. That's my 2 cents.
Determined to give up, burning a living. Provide the material tools to carry on the work. Family, my wife, friends who say, let's go to time to time. Which profit me by something. And for the moment, all these relieve these instruments, all my grand strategy, language, until for the moment, off the deep end again. Modifying used for the most scientific
Cool. All right. See you guys tomorrow. Have a good weekend.